people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. Two Barbadoses is where the business live, so something got to give. Vote the Democratic Labour Party. The rich and the poor will put the same door of opportunity with the Democratic Labour Party. As we serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. Two Barbadoses is where the business live, so something got to give. Vote the Democratic Labour Party. The rich and the poor will put the same door of opportunity with the Democratic Labour Party. As we serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. To Barbados is where the business live. So something got to give. Vote the Democratic Labour Party. The rich and the poor will vote the same door of opportunity with the Democratic Labour Party. As we serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people, serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people, serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. To Barbados is where the business live. So something got to give. Vote the Democratic Labour Party. The rich and the poor will vote the same door of opportunity with the Democratic Labour Party. As we serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people, serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP.
Pleasant good evening to everyone out there in Facebook land and YouTube and Twitter and all social media platforms. A blessed good evening to my Democratic Labour Party family. Welcome. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you, Lord, for another bountiful evening where we can all come together as one. I pray, Lord God, at this time, Lord God, that you will bless not only the chairperson, bless every speaker that will come. Edify their mouths and their minds as they seek to explain and tell the truth according to the Democratic Labour Party. Lord God, at this time, I just want to lift up that family that has lost that loved one, God. I pray, Lord God, that you will stretch forth your hands to them right now. Touch that mother that has lost her son, Lord God, so horribly, Lord God. I pray for everyone that is in isolation, Lord God, wherever they may be. I pray, Lord, also that you will stretch your hands forth to the entire Democratic Labour Party team and other people in Barbados. I answer these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of me, we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of me. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust.
A pleasant good evening to everyone tuned in. Good evening, comrades, and good evening, my fellow Bajans. It is a pleasure to be here this evening and to be representing the Democratic Labour Party. I feel as though recently there's been a lot of talk, and the truth is that the Democratic Labour Party has a lot to offer this nation. With a history of representing Barbadians by creating excellent policies that really reflect the interests of the average Barbadian, this party has a lot to deliver to this beautiful island, especially in these trying times. Our first speaker is a man who knows that well. He is one that has been ready to serve, and he has served our community for a very long time in the military and in the public service. He is an attorney at law, and he is ready to serve his constituency of St. Michael North. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. B. Ricardo Harrison.
R-I-C-K-Y Harrison is how we voting when election come. R-I-C-K-Y Harrison is how we voting now. How will we get at the vote? Harrison getting the vote. How will we get at the vote? Ricky Harrison getting the vote. Inside the community, Ricky Harrison is the man that we want to be. In the forefront, working for we family. Man of integrity, hard working, good leadership quality. St. Michael North, Ricky, he has the strategy, bulletproof plan.
Good evening, Barbadians. Good evening to those following the Democratic Labour Party family on the various social media platforms. Thanks for your support thus far in our outside engagements. Barbadians, this country has been turned upside down by the leadership of the Barbados Labour Party, by its leader, and by her current collection of 26 ministers, who for the past 3 years and 8 months, indeed for the past 44 months, have been the most silent cabinet in the history of Westminster politics, which has reduced us as a country to be the laughing stock of the rest of the Caribbean. Elections have been called 18 months before their due date. And the Barbados Labour Party, with its massive mandate, all 30 seats, have called this election in the midst of a raging pandemic, putting the lives of our most vulnerable citizens at risk, speaking about divisiveness and the need to unify. But we know where that divisiveness has lied or lies. We know that because the last Barbados Labour Party government was a one-woman show, something had to give. We first heard about the anxious 9, then we heard about the eager 14, and then we heard about the determined 17. Tell me, they are going around the country saying it is safer and that they care. Is it really safer to call an election in the midst of a raging pandemic? I challenge you, if heaven forbid, that there are put back in business all the so-called unity that they're displaying on the platforms currently, the status quo will remain. Who ain't speaking to who? The various lawsuits that are still outstanding and the many threats. They came to power promising much. They said that they would have the integrity in public life legislation, a bill on transparency and accountability, and others. Thus far, the only thing of note that we can remember they're doing is passing legislation to allow 2 senators to become citizens of Barbados at short notice. After 3 years, and 8 months, what have they got to show? Over 40 consultants paid exorbitant salaries. We have not had a budget. In fact, Barbados is on a financial autopilot because we don't know how much is spent, how much will be spent, or what they have been doing with the money that they've been borrowing for the last 3 years. We have been thrown into a state of a republic, and the average man in the street, the only thing that he can tell you about a republic is that we no longer have a governor general, we have a president. There is no constitution to govern the republic. They have promised that early 2022, discussions will be unfolded on the need for a Republican constitution. Rather, they gave us elections. We have an escalating crime situation in Barbados. And not a word from the Attorney General of Barbados. With an awful, ugly glee in his voice, he was quick to pass legislation to lock up poor people for breaking the COVID-19 rules. But you know, he never said one word about escalating crime situation where we were averaging 40 murders a year, 40 gun-related murders per year. Another word from him, but he would appear on television and in the media almost with a glee in his voice and his pretty smile and tell you how much punishment you will get for breaking the COVID-19 protocols. A poor shopkeeper was arrested and charged, went to prison, and sadly he died, and all he did was to sell 2 packs of tea times and 4 deputies. And they say they care and it is safer with them. The only thing of note that the current Attorney General has done is to appoint 2 commissioners of police, override one voice for another, and a matter which rested with the Caribbean Court of Justice involving 40 police officers gave them a sweet secret deal that no Barbadian taxpayer knows how much money was spent. Imagine that. And look at the Ministry of Health. The outgoing Minister of Health finds time on a daily basis to offer condolences to the families of the persons who have died from the COVID-19. But you know he can't find time to meet with the nurses. He can't find time to meet with the nurses' unions. But rather he meets with the Barbados Registered Nurses Association, whose membership, I'm told, comprises 500 persons. And of the 500, 300 are retired nurses. These poor nurses, who last year we were told, blow your horn, clap your hands, and they made a little blue dollar, and they were heroes. Suddenly, in 12 months' time, they have become pariahs, persona non grata. Freezing the salaries in December, you imagine that? December of all months. Christmas time, going to the bank, not a cent, because they are standing up for their rights. And you tell me that it is safer with them and that they care? Imagine those poor nurses going to the, can't buy a ham, can't buy a turkey, can't buy presents for the children, can't take care of the loved ones at Christmas time of all times. We know they don't care. They care about themselves and their friends and their families. But it gets even worse. The poor pensioners who are the bedrock of this beautiful country, you know, in December they didn't get a cent. Not a cent. I spoke to a constituent recently, and he said, Mr. Harrison, I ain't getting the money yet for December. And they got the unmitigated gall to come in the press and tell lies and tell the poor pensioners that the check in the mail. Well, that's the oldest story in the world. Your pensioners? And I'll say this to you. They, under the guidance of the IMF, have a plan for the pensioners. They plan to take away what little pittance they have now. I don't know if they can pay them in bonds, but if, heaven forbid, that they are re-elected, their plan to take away pensioners' little pittance and cut it in half and pay them in bonds. Let them get on a platform and deny that. And they say it's safer, and they care. Never in the history of the Democratic Labour Party have any pensioner made to suffer the indignity of not getting his money in December. But you know, all 30 of them get the money. All 30 parliamentarians receive their salaries for December. You remember less than 4 years ago when they assumed office, they planned and they proposed all these fancy things that they would turn water into wine, they would turn sand into sugar. What did they do? The first thing they do is attack poor people, raise the bus fares, made a song and dance about the NSRL. You know, they attached a $45 onto the water bill that you can't get rid of. Sometimes your water bill is less than the $45, and you pay every month. Introduce something called a fuel charge so that you pay at the pump. We used to be paying, those of us with small vehicles, $400 a year. Now you're all paying almost $400 a week in petrol. And they said they care, and it is safer with them. And they can do better, you know. All they need to do is reduce the taxes on freight, on goods and services, and the cost of living will come down. But it's not in their interest to bring down the cost of living. Their sole purpose is to make you suffer and be mendicants and beggars. But watch and see. just before the 19th, they will run about with pieces of red cloth and stick money in it and ask people to vote for them, and then disappear off the landscape for the next 5 years or so. The Democratic Labour Party, the people of Barbados, have a deep-rooted faith in God. We see God as central to our lives. They have been telling us about removal of God from the pages of the lives of this country. Watch their words carefully. They speak about metaverse and all those fancy terms. Be ye warned. We remember that they promised transparency and accountability, and that they were going to prosecute people for this and for that. But I want to know how a construction magnate, better known for his construction and building acumen, building hotels and so on, can get radically involved in the purchase of vaccines in the sum of $24 million. I am not sure if it's US dollars or Barbados dollars, but I know it's $24 million. And that deal signed off by no less a person than a senior public officer. But the goodly minister said, not me. Like Pontius Pilate, he washed his hands of the whole thing. I'm going to ask you the question tonight, Barbadians. If the permanent secretary acted alone, was she mad? And if she was not mad, who gave her such instructions that she could sign off on such a deal without the knowledge of the minister? If she was not mad, if she was not crazy, she should, that minister who gave her that instruction should be fired. The Democratic Labour Party is demanding a commission of inquiry staffed by an independent commissioner or commissioners into this whole sordid, dirty mess. The Prime Minister said it was a red herring. But we know if you put a red herring in the cupboard for 3 or 4 days, how it smells. That is one of those types of red herrings. She called us pillow. But I'm certain our pillow is tasting much better than that dirty red herring. And I'm going to say this. That Commission of Inquiry's findings, if any wrongdoing is unearthed, should be given to the Commissioner of Police or the Director of Public Prosecutions. If any wrongdoing is unearthed. The Prime Minister can treat it like a red herring. Right-thinking Barbadians will not. Friends in the Democratic Labour Party, this one-woman government has found it impossible to relieve the plight of the middle and the working class. She has written off taxes for the rich and the famous, while those in the middle class continue to struggle to pay their mortgages, continue to struggle to pay their car payments, and all that was needed by a good and caring government was to reduce the cost of freight on goods and services. But no, you reward some person in the sum of $775,000 for a tourism slogan that a 10-year-old child at Eden Lodge Primary or Gazette Primary could have written for way less than the $775,000 that was paid for that slogan that they couldn't use after all. A waste of taxpayers' money. They made a song and dance about UE fees and how the Dems stop people from getting the UE and all. All we said was, you pay 80, we will pay 80, you pay 20. And they made a whole song and dance about it. But you know that the same UE students can't find a work. Persons with master's degrees, people tell them, you get work, but you can work as a general worker. You imagine after 4 or 5 years at KFL, that's the best that this government can do for its students that they made so much fuss for? Shameful. And they say they care. Now, I don't propose to engage in any name calling or any invective or any mudslinging. That is their style. I leave that to them because that's what they're best at. But I want you to permit me to be parochial for just a few minutes to address some of the concerns in the St. Michael North constituency, of which I plan to be a proud and loyal and committed representative. Some of the initiatives that we propose in St. Michael North is to reduce the unemployment by offering persons sustained jobs that they can go to the bank or the credit union and obtain a loan. While giving a person a weed whacker is all well and good, we want to be able to give a person a job that he can feed his family on a long-term basis. There is a crying need for improvement in the housing stock in parts of that constituency, and therefore we are proposing to provide comfortable accommodation for those Barbadians. And this is not only applicable to St. Michael North, but the entire Barbados. And on the subject of housing, anybody see the Chinese houses going up? Somebody said they look like something you keep canaries in, or pigeons. I'll get to that later. We want to provide opportunities for our young people in the constituency to express themselves in the creative forum, using their computer skills, using art and craft, using farming, and by the way, we've already started the farming project with a couple of the young men in KFL and Montgomery, using sports such as cricket, road tennis, basketball, and football. And we propose that some of these sports be played on a semi-professional basis. We propose also for that constituency a massive environmental cleanup and a sustained beautification of the entire constituency, to include murals, the creation of green spaces, garden competitions, and the removal of the derricks which are eyesore in that particular constituency. Like I said before, the creation of housing banks by acquiring abandoned properties and refashioning them into houses for low-income earners. As a way of giving back to the country which has given me so much in terms of an education, we propose monthly legal aid clinics to assist constituents in the preparation of wills, trusts, and the like. And an adult elderly daycare facility so that you can take your elderly relatives during the day when you're off to work and collect them after. These are just some of the initiatives that we propose, and they're all doable. They're not pie-in-the-sky promises that can't be done. Some we have already started, and once we are elected, we will continue on a grander scale. I want to say this, that the candidate on the other side, I'm told the young man is a Christian minister. How does that sit with the removal of God from the landscape? What are his views? And why are we not hearing him on subjects such as the civil unions and the marijuana debate. And again, what are his views on the removal of God from the Christian landscape? And why would you want to represent an area where you say that you don't want your children to be raised? These are just a few of the questions I would want to ask the gentleman on the other side. Barbadians, keep praying for this nation. The threat of dictatorship looms large. The removal of God looms even larger and threatens our religious sanctity. If the Barbados Labour Party is re-elected, they will become more emboldened. The dreaded safe zones will be implemented. Vaccines will become mandatory, and let them deny that on any platform that they have. Because if you listen to their apologists on the radio, and the way they center the television ads, you will see that they're working towards that. They have become hell-bent on removing God from this country, from this good Christian country, and replacing him with something foreign. I want you to stand guard, keep your eyes open, so that when you go to vote on January the 19th, Wednesday, January the 19th, you take your mask and your sanitizer, and you keep these things sharply into your focus. Vote against despotism. Vote against nepotism. Vote against dictatorship. Somebody said cronyism. Vote for one Barbados. Vote for one God-fearing Barbados. Friends of the Democratic Labour Party, God bless you, and I thank you very much.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you.
You heard it, Barbados. We honestly have an opportunity in Barbados to stand up against the things that we do not believe in. And most importantly, we have an opportunity to stand up for the things that we do believe in. One of the most important things at this point in our life is ensuring that we can protect our right to vote. It is ensuring that we protect our voice, and our voices will be heard through our vote. The last general election in Barbados was an example of Barbadians coming out and sharing exactly how they felt about the governing body in Barbados. It is necessary now that we have, quite frankly, proven our point. We have given people the opportunity to go back to the drawing board and to truly reevaluate how they will represent us. At this point, we have to make a serious decision. What does that Barbados look like? What does that Barbados mean to us? For some of us, we truly cannot say that we are safer with our representatives. Some of us are truly suffering in our constituencies, and some of us have not seen our representatives for a very long time. It is an unfortunate situation, and this is not coming from a biased perspective. I'd like people to forget that I am on a Democratic Labour Party platform. This is coming from the perspective of a true Barbadian. The reality is that we have to vote for our interests. As Barbadians, we cannot stand idly by and allow ourselves to be denied the representation that we truly need in this country. We cannot take this time to focus on voting for a party. We have to vote for individual candidates who truly are strong enough to represent our constituencies, because every constituency has different needs. And if we fail to recognize our own constituency's needs, we fail our constituents. We fail our brothers and our sisters, our mothers and our fathers. We fail our children. This country was never meant to operate the way that it is operating today. It was never meant to have 30 people sitting on one side. This really shouldn't be a problem. And I normally would not have anything to say about 30 seats being taken up by one party. But the reality is that 30 seats with persons who are not willing to combat issues in this country, meaning that they're not willing to stand up against their party, is a dangerous situation. Barbados deserves better. This is not saying that any of the ministers should be fighting their party, because my goal is not to tear the Barbados Labour Party apart. My goal is to see that every single representative truly represents their constituents. Because if you choose the party over your constituents, you have failed them. You have thrown away their votes. Because 3 years ago, we entrusted each and every one of them with our lives, with our livelihoods, with our families' livelihoods. Most importantly, we entrusted them with our future. I entrusted them with my future, and I entrusted them with my children's future. I truly cannot say that I am happy right now, because Barbados deserves better. They keep mentioning that we don't want to vote for an opposition and end up with a government that we don't want. I find that to be a very dangerous statement. I believe that that statement is truly rooted in attempting to guilt Barbadians into voting for a party that may not represent their interests. The reality is that this country, at its core, does not even vote for parties. When you go into a polling station, you don't even see a party's name on the list. You see individual candidates. And this is my call to every Barbadian to put aside the parties. As I said, I may be on a DLP platform, but once I go into my polling station, I will not be blindly voting for the Democratic Labour Party. I am voting for an individual candidate, a candidate who is strong enough to stand up against people who are unable to serve me correctly, a candidate who is able to accept that people may not like him or her. I am willing to vote for the person that truly represents my interests, the person that will fight to ensure that I have everything that I need in a constituency. And no, things will not be perfect. Think about it. In your household, things aren't perfect, but we try our best. And we know that in our households, we run them based on what our families need. It is time that we treat our constituencies like our households. We need to make decisions that are truly in our household's best interests. Can all of you truly say that every constituent, every candidate is the best for your constituency? Give it thought. This time is not about blindly voting. It is about choosing, making an educated decision, listening to every single one of your candidates, and ensuring that they're the right one to give the job to. Because it could be 5 years, because we expected 5 years, which was cut short. However, it could be another 5 years. And I think that Barbados deserves better for the next 5 years. And if we do not let our voices be heard, if we do not truly go out there and vote and ensure that Barbados looks the way that we need it to look in order to go forward, in order to grow as a nation, I am genuinely scared for the future. Not only for me, not only for my generation, but for my future generation. For my children, my grandchildren, I am genuinely concerned. And it is our opportunity as not only as everyone, but as young people too. Don't feel disenchanted and say you're staying home. Take this opportunity. Listen to each one of your candidates and ensure that you place your X next to the person that truly deserves your vote. The reality is that this Barbados belongs to us. And everyone deserves a voice in this country. But we are the ones that will have to suffer it for the next, maybe 80 years. I think about it like this. My great-grandmother is 105 years old. She has lived through over a century of Barbados. She was there when Barbados became independent, and she has seen it evolve throughout the years. And something that has happened in the past 5, maybe 10 years is that Barbados has truly evolved. The needs of Barbadians has changed from being a representative that is focusing on creating labor rights, because that's how most of these parties were created. Laborers needed help. They needed a voice that would represent them. They needed someone to speak for them. Barbados doesn't need that as much anymore. Not saying that we don't need it. We do have unions that fight for those things. It is time that we see that our political parties also evolve in that way. We need people that will fight against overtaxation. We need people that are going to ensure that as the world continues to evolve, that we evolve with it. We need people that are focused on things like education, because with the pandemic, the style of education has completely changed, and so many of our young children are being left behind. This is not necessarily because anyone has abandoned them, but the reality is that online learning has changed the landscape of education in this country completely. It has changed the needs of the Barbadian children. Without Barbadian children getting those foundational tools, they're unfortunately doomed to fail. This is not to say that education is the only way out. This is not to say that Barbadians have to follow a specific path. But we have to arm young children with the opportunities that they need in order to be able to survive in this world. And some of them simply are not thriving in this environment. So how do we provide our children with the necessary tools? How do we ensure that each and every child will have the opportunity to learn? Because some children are really not functioning in online school. How do we ensure that children that learn through tangible methods are not left behind? And how do we ensure that those that have already started to fall behind will be picked back up? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves. And with our party providing solutions, we have to listen to each and every solution and make serious decisions because they're necessary for our country. It is necessary that we focus on things that are important to us. Things like diversifying our economy, because tourism is not working anymore. In a pandemic where people really are not visiting as much as they were before, how do we ensure that this country will really be able to survive difficult times? How will we ensure that should another pandemic come, or should any other situation come, that we will be resilient enough to survive? The diversification of our economy is extremely important. The focus on agriculture is important. The focus on medical marijuana industry is important. And not just the medical marijuana industry, but the industry that focuses on Barbadian people actually having a chance to become a big part of that industry. How is it that you want to encourage Barbadians to participate in an industry where they can't afford a permit, where they can't even practice here. Because I was there at the town hall meeting, and persons with excellent experience were informed that they would be given the opportunity to share that expertise. But I heard no mention of compensating them for it. The reality is that their intellectual property is worth something. Their experience is worth something. And whether or not you consider it to be a crime, whether or not you agree with it, the reality is that it's an important industry that has the opportunity to help Barbadians, both those who are ill and those who are looking for an opportunity to grow their own business. These are questions that you have to answer and things that you have to consider. I won't continue to speak for much longer. I instead will be welcoming our next speaker in just one moment. I've talked for a very long time, and I have taken up most of the time that I would have had to introduce our next speaker. But it is without any further ado that I introduce our next speaker, Mr. Andrew Cave.
Yo, DLP, we making history with KV. Vote your ex for he. Christchurch West, KV we want. Andrew KV we want. Madam Bad, vote for KV. Here we DLP we want. Andrew KV we want. Yo, Madam Bad, let them know that we voting for KV. Get out your chair, make sure you ain't lazy. Man or boy could be girl or lady.
DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP.
Biggity. The best pick is S-Wick. The best pick is S-Wick. The best pick is S-Wick. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wick. Make way for the people's champ, the only ones in Philip West want. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wick. Sin Philip people know this is true. S-Wick always for you. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wick. In transport and water, agriculture, economic affairs. He helped build this nation for years. He sweat yellow and blue. S-Wick always for you. So F-U-C-K, tell she I say the best pick is S-Wick. The best pick is S-Wick. The best pick is S-Wick. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wick. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wick. Who say Philip Westwick? David S-Wick.
Good night. My name is Andrew Cave, and I am the Democratic candidate for Christchurch West. And first of all, I have to thank God Almighty for giving me the responsibility of looking after and representing the people of Christchurch West. Now, the reason why I got into politics, I know many people don't know this. However, when I was around the age of 11, I wanted to be the president of the United States. And I discovered that you had to be a citizen of the United States, and that went through the window. So I told my mother I wanted to know more about my birthplace, which is Singapore. And she went to the library, and she bought back this whole set of books for me. And I discovered that Lee Kuan Yew and our very own, the father of independence, Errol Walton Barrow, went to the same university. As a matter of fact, they were friends. And Errol Barrow wanted to bring the Singapore model to Barbados. But however, I believe that his position and what he wanted to bring to Barbados was misconstrued, and they voted him out at that point of time. But nevertheless, I decided that I wanted to represent my people because the truth is that I grew up on the block. I had a hard life, and there's a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. So that being the case, I stand here before you tonight as a true representative for the people of Christchurch West. Now, I was ratified on the 27th of May, 2021. And on the 28th of May, I decided to hit the ground. And while I was in the area of Christchurch West, it doesn't matter where I went, I was well received. But I walked the length and breadth and width of Christchurch West with a heavy heart, because most persons that I encountered said to me, KV boy, we need employment. We need employment. We need to feed our children. Everywhere I went, that is the main cause. And that is the main concern, And my concern is that we all know that anywhere in the world and unemployment is too high. Unemployment becomes the mother and father of crime and violence. And we need to change this. We need to nip it in the bud. And one of the things that I want to table by nipping that situation in the bud is to have Christchurch West to become the financial hub of Barbados. And how are we going to do this? We have to begin with our people. And my strategic program, through a foundation called Live Your Best Life Foundation, to be. And one of the umbrella programs that we're going to have is called block farming, where we're going to have like aquaponics, hydroponics, and we're going to get some of the social partners to buy into the program. And when they buy into the program, we get some of the guys off the block, around the block, through the block, it doesn't matter. Once those guys come onto the program, we're going to work that program and then sell back those produce to the supermarkets or wherever in our community that will buy those produce. and we're going to be very competitive where that is concerned. So I think that is one of the initiatives that we're going to look at in order to address the problem that we have in Christchurch West, and by extension, Barbados. Now, we have a program in Barbados as it relates to the debushing program. We have the guys cleaning the dust. But with a heavy heart, when I see them, I know that they have potential. I know that they have potential. Our children, our boys and the girls, they are better than just cleaning the roads of Barbados. They are better than that. I know that there are engineers within each and every one of their carpenters. There are masons, there are tilers in each and every one of them. And do you know what saddens me is that if any of those boys and girls, our children who are cleaning the roads, get hurt or got an accident, do you know that there's no NAS program for them? What about their pensions? Do you think that is something that these children, that these young men with so much potential should have to go through? Now, I can see that our educational system that is in place right now has influenced such a result. And why do I say that? Now, we have a system that puts all of our children in a particular bubble and judges every child according to that particular system and up to that standard. We know that all of our children are not academically inclined, but we still judge all of them the same way. It's like, it reminds me of the story with the monkey in a tree, the monkey and the fish. And you ask the monkey and the fish at the same time to climb that tree. And because the monkey can climb the tree and the fish can't, we look at the fish and say, listen, the fish is silly. Many a time in our educational system, we look at some of our children and say that they're silly just because they can't climb the tree of our educational system. And we need to change this. We need to implement programs within our educational system to help our children realize their goals and talents and potentials from a very, very small age, very young age. Why do they have to wait till they are 20 and 30 and stumble upon their goals, and stumble upon their talents, stumble upon their giftings? Why do they have to wait in their 30s and 20s to find out, listen, that I'm a good tiler? I can tile. I have a son in China, Elijah, and there are 5-year-olds that are given tasks in schools. So the teacher will give these same 5-year-olds $1 billion in a scenario to invest $1 million and expect them to give a return on that, a return of 50% on that $1 million at 5 years old. No wonder that China is the world economic power of the world. And we need to implement some of those principles that are working. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have a system here and it's not working. We need to address that. Now, just the other day, we had our nurses that were revered as heroes. And I remember they even had a day set aside for them, so that we can acknowledge them as a country. And we don't know what these nurses go through. Sometimes these nurses have to wait till 6 months before they get paid. 5 and 6 months pass and they ain't get paid. And you know what they have to go and do? They have to go and borrow money from somebody somewhere. And by the time they are paid, they have to go and pay back the person or wherever they got the money from, and then they're back at square one. Some of these nurses are just single parents as well, just trying and struggling to help and feed their families. This is not a time for us as a country to turn our backs on our heroes. And just because our heroes decided to take a position, and just because they decide to take a position and stand up for their rights, they're painted with a brush of negativity. No, I think that is extremely wicked. And we need to do something to help our nurses across Barbados. And I hear a deafening silence from the powers that be in Barbados. Now, I know that many organizations, maybe like the church, never really touched this particular subject, and it's very dear to me. And I think it's very dear and concerning as well, because anytime that any person decides to bury a flag on a coffin, around a coffin, drape around a coffin, you're saying to me that it is dead. That is the message that you're conveying to me. And you're going to bury that flag. I think that is so distasteful. And it's shameful for the people in Barbados. And it's very, very disrespectful. Thank you. And if, I'm not saying that this is the cause, but I'm saying if that act had anything to do with the calamities that we as a nation in Barbados experienced over the last 2 years, I believe that this is the time for the churches to come together and break such a curse over this nation, Barbados of ours. We can't deny that we had COVID, then we had the hurricane, then we had the dust from the volcano, then we had COVID again, then we had crime and violence, we had, which we can safely say that is the most, in the history of Barbados, it was the most deaths and murders that we would have experienced in the history of Barbados. And then we had COVID again, and we still have COVID today. And if that has anything to do with that, any relationship to do with that, I'm not saying that is the reason. Don't quote me on that. I am just saying if. And I believe we as a people, a Christian nation, along with the church, should come together and pray against that act that took place in Ghana. And I believe when our dear and sacred flag was buried, I believe that true representation for the people of Barbados was buried with it. Now, in 2018, the people of Barbados decided to divorce the Democratic Labour Party. But today, we, the Democratic Labour Party, are 30 strong. I just want us to have a lot more support. That is all. Sorry. But we are 30 candidates strong. We are better. We are younger. And we are stronger than before. And on the 19th of January, there will be a national wedding in this country, Barbados. And the people of Barbados will take the Democratic Labour Party to be their government again. The Democratic Labour Party will put the people's interests first and foremost. To have and to hold. In good times and in bad times. For better, for worse. And with the power invested in me, I pronounce that the people of Barbados and the Democratic Labour Party are now one. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. God bless.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We go.
Thank you to Andrew Cave for that amazing address. At this time, we're going to move swiftly along to our next speaker. Hailing from the constituency of St. George South, a lady who is no stranger to hard work, one who is not afraid to use her voice to speak for those who need her representation. She is an advocate for her people, and she is ready to serve the people of St. George North. Help me welcome the candidate for the Democratic Labour Party for the constituency of St. George South. The candidate for the constituency of St. George South, Ms. Dawn Marie Armstrong.
Moving strong with Armstrong. Make Dawn Marie Armstrong the DLP representative for St. George South. Dawn is a woman for the people and is ready to serve and uplift the community. Dawn is committed to providing unbiased representation to everyone and will work hard to ensure that all voices across the constituency's respective communities are heard. So on January 19th, do the right thing by moving strong with Dawn Armstrong. Moving strong with Armstrong.
Good night, all. I think it's safe to say that this battle is taking a toll on each and every one of us, and yet we press on amidst the fatigue. We have been bombarded with calls, we have been lobbying, we've been advocating. I think all of us can safely say that after January 19th, we will be due a long, good rest. But I'm here again tonight to raise some more issues. And I have noticed that I have been heavily criticized by some charities in the past few days who claim to be non-partisan. And I find it so interesting because every time I am approached or criticized by a party or by an organization that claims to be non-partisan, we see the spokespersons for these charities being affiliated with the Barbados Labour Party. You know, some like to refer to them as yard fowls, but I like to call them songbirds. And the reason why I like to call them songbirds is because after January 19th, they will be singing a different tune when the Democratic Labour Party takes over governance of this country. I call them songbirds because all they have done for the past 3.5 years, I was gonna say for the past 2 weeks, but they've been singing long before that. All they have done for the past 3.5 years is sing for their supper under the Barbados Labour Party administration without representing the rights of the individuals that they are supposed to serve. And now that I get on a platform and begin to raise these issues, they are accusing me of being political when we, the candidates of the Democratic Labour Party, are the ones that will be walking up the steps of Parliament to implement policy, to implement legislation, to make the lives of Barbadians better. I cry shame on these so-called non-partisan charities attacking candidates who are qualified to speak on the issues of Barbadians, attacking Barbadians who choose to come to us to speak about their issues because they are afraid of the victimization that has occurred in this country for the past 3.5 years under this Barbados Labour Party administration. They are accusing me of being a voice for people who claim. This is not Dawn Marie Armstrong speaking. These are people that come to me hiding because they feel as if they are unsafe in this country for expressing their views. So I cry shame on the so-called non-partisan strategies that in a time like this, instead of listening to the message that your people are bringing to me, again, you choose to condemn the messenger. I cry shame on you. And I will implore you to go back to your boardrooms and to sit and to reflect, to see where your interest in this country lies. Is it self-serving or are you serving the people of Barbados? I spoke about recidivism and you are saying, oh, young offenders get a clean certificate of character. I am speaking about young offenders who have re-offended as adults and have found themselves in prison. I am saying that young people should not be condemned because of a misdemeanor. I am saying that we have failed them. And I cry shame on the charities yet again for making a serious issue a tennis ball. That when I hit into your court, you have to hit it back. This is no game. The lives of people are impacted by the decisions that we make today. The lives of Barbadians are impacted by the things that we do or say. And for the past 2 weeks, none of you have gotten up to say how you intend to make the lives of Barbadians better. But when we get up on this platform and speak, you make clips and you broadcast them trying to make a mockery of the Democratic Labour Party, but you are indeed making a mockery of yourself and your government and the people of Barbados. But we are not ready for that discussion. So I come here again tonight because I tell people I do not write speeches. I speak from my heart. So when you hear the passion in my voice, you know that it is coming from a place of care, of understanding, of empathy, of sympathy for the situations that I know nothing of because I know what it means to be human. and I know what it means to want to be understood, and I know what it means to be communicated with effectively, and I know what it means to be of service, but most importantly, I know how to serve. And that is why you will not silence me. And that is why you cause me to make headlines, because everyone knows that what I say is true. So you can quote me all you want, and we are moving on today to another pressing issue. Tonight I say, persons from the disabled community have reached out to me. And they have said, Dawn Marie Armstrong, these are our issues. And people are not speaking about them. And I will speak again tonight. Because where I, Dawn Marie Armstrong, goes, the Barbados Labour Party seems to follow. Where I, Dawn Marie Armstrong, paved the way, the Barbados Labour Party seems to be following. So let us go ahead. Tonight we will be speaking on the topic of inclusivity. And I made my notes for this one because when I received the phone call from the persons in the disabled community, I decided to take notes because I wanted to understand, and I wanted to make sure that when I stood here tonight that you understood as well that it is our duty that after January 19th, disabled persons in this country must feel as if they can live and have a life. And parents of disabled children must feel as if they can live and have a life. And inclusivity is defined as the practice or policy of providing access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those having physical or mental disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. And it is with a heavy heart that I say tonight, we have no disability legislation in place in this country. We have a 2017 Employment Act that highlights the prevention of discrimination. And it speaks to non-discrimination for all persons, which prohibits discrimination against persons with disabilities in employment, but it does not include education or the provision of other state services. So you are saying right now that in Barbados, the only way disabled persons are protected is if they are in a work environment. We are not taking into account family. We are not taking into account schools. We are not taking into account, the community. We are saying right now that in Barbados in 2022, with the Barbados Labour Party government taking clips of Democratic Labour Party presentations for their amusement, this government for 3.5 years, after promising this country to move it forward, still has not put any disability legislation in place. And I want you to hear me wherever you are. Disabled persons are people too. They came into the world like us. They breathe like us. They talk like us. And they deserve to be treated as we are. And when I say us, I speak about able-bodied. It is a privilege to be able-bodied, and we take it for granted. And I say us because for years we have made it seem as if it is us, the able-bodied, against them, the disabled. But I say that after January 19th, when I walk up the steps of Parliament, it will change. And I will make note and I will let you know some of the key points that came out of that conversation with that young woman, 33 years old. The same age as me, 3 children. She calls herself a ward of the state. And as she has 3 children, she found herself being victimized by the same state that was implemented to serve her. They make her feel guilty for having children and being disabled. They call her names when she goes in to access the services that this country is supposed to provide. And she has said to me, I have attended seminar after seminar, year after year, training me for a job and still no job. She is partially blind. She was born partially blind, and she goes to seminars every year with corporate entities in Barbados looking for employment and cannot find any. And we have a 2017 Employment Act speaking to discrimination and do not employ disabled people in this country. Who does this legislation help, or who does it benefit? And she says she has to beg to get the basic necessities in life. Beg. A disabled woman with 3 children telling me she has to beg. And yet you do not address the issues of the people in this country. She said, Dawn Marie, I cannot handle the stigma and the discrimination of being disabled in Barbados. She said, I have felt suicidal because of the discrimination I have had in my own country. She said, I was abused when I was young because I was disabled. And these are the voices that the Barbados Labour Party would seek to silence because Dawn Marie Armstrong is the messenger. I tell you tonight, do not focus on the messenger, focus on the message. She said, Dawn Marie, I want to feel empowered to live the best life that I can. And empowerment is a strong word because you can include people all you want. But if you do not empower them to be better, it is at a loss. She said, speak to housing solutions for disabled persons. Having a grant to pay my rent is not enough. We have landlords in this country taking advantage of disabled persons, of disenfranchised persons, of vulnerable persons in this country for a check. She said we must change the use of the word invalid and retarded. And people have a laugh. She said she has gone into government institutions and been referred to as invalid. She said the terms are derogatory. She said the terms hurt my feelings. And we speak about an inclusive society and a progressive Barbados, and yet we still do not understand the need for disability legislation in this country. But I say that it will change. I say that in me, Dawn Marie Armstrong, you have found an advocate. I say that I advocate for every person across every community. I say that I advocate for the young, the old, the children, the women, the disabled. I say that I advocate for everyone that has a concern about their quality of life in this country. And she even educated me about the different classifications of disabilities. There are persons who were born disabled, and there are persons who became disabled. She also said that having a trustworthy aid is important. And when I thought about it, I said, trustworthy? How does one become a trustworthy aid? She said they have to be qualified. And when I speak about qualification, I speak about dealing with people. I speak about the basic level of psychological understanding. I have to lobby for psychology because that is the area in which I am qualified. And I have to say that when we speak about trustworthiness, we speak about confidence, we speak about ethics, and we have to begin to speak about psychology. And it is tied again directly to our mental health. And she says the people of Barbados need to know that there is high suicide contemplation within our disabled community. Do you know how far one must go to begin contemplating suicide? Do you know how hard it must be for a person to decide, I was brought into this world and I no longer want to be a part of it? And when the Democratic Labour Party speaks on these issues, you clip and laugh. Because it is funny that we seek to represent people who feel as if they are misrepresented, but I cry shame on this government. And she named the organizations. She said, Dawn Marie, these organizations have very little funding. And I say that the disability legislation that needs to be implemented in this country has to begin to provide funding for organizations that cater to the disabled in this country. We speak about the Barbados Council for the Disabled. They need funding. We speak about the National United Society for the Blind. They need funding. We speak about the Barbados Association of Disabilities. They need funding. We speak about the National Disabilities Unit. They need funding. We speak about the Organization for the Parents of the Disabled. And we forget that children who are disabled have parents who have to cope with their disabilities. Where is the support for them? And all of these organizations need funding. They lack attention, they lack assistance, and they need to make the lives of disabled persons in this country better, but they cannot do it alone. They all need funding. And I would have thought that with all the legislation that would have been passed in the past 3.5 years, that the disabled community would have had a look in. And this Barbados Labour Party is coming yet again to say, stay the course. But the course that we are presently on overlooked the disabled community, and you still have not addressed it, but we are supposed to stay on a course with you. But I, Dawn Marie Armstrong, say that the Democratic Labour Party will take up the helm of this ship and change the course to the future for a better Barbados. And I will end by giving you an example of one piece of legislation, not here, but in the UK where I was trained and where I am currently training. And it is called the Equality Act. It was established in October of 2010. And it said under this act, disabled people should be treated equally and be protected from discrimination. And it applies to many situations such as education, employment, exercise of public functions, goods, services, facilities, and transport. Another disabled man reached out to me and he said, Dawn Marie Armstrong, you must tell them that disabled persons in this country should not be paying bus fare. I had no idea. Disabled persons that can't find employment, that are wards of the state, some on welfare, still have to pay bus fare in this country. A basic need. These are the things that we have to speak about. An example of this implemented in education speaks about how disabled students and explains how education providers and employers have to make reasonable adjustments to provide support and make things accessible. These are the things that we should be discussing. I will lobby for disability legislation to be implemented, and I will lobby for bus fare to be removed for disabled persons in this country. I will go even further to lobby for transportation to be provided for disabled persons in this country. And wherever you are, I want you to understand it is your duty to bring your brothers and sisters together and to unite in harmony and to reflect to see how we can make this country more inclusive for every Barbadian going forward. It changes with us. It will change with the Democratic Labour Party. And St. George South, I say indeed, it will change with me. And I thank you.
DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of me. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of me. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people.
I want to thank Dawn Marie for that very riveting address. And I want to especially thank her for standing up for the rights of persons in our community who truly need it. Persons who are often left behind and persons who do not get that representation oftentimes, or even if they have that representation, it's usually just to fill up a quota in a room. I am going to applaud her for that because it doesn't happen all the time, and we really need people to stand up for the rights of those who are underrepresented in this country. At this time, I'm going to be introducing to you a man who has been around the Democratic Labour Party for upwards of 50 years. He's a stalwart of this party, and he has served as the campaign manager for many candidates throughout the years. Help me welcome Mr. Reggie Hunt.
DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of me. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of me. We got the plan to save this nation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I think that coming after that address by Dawn Marie with all that passion, I hope not to get lost way with my message. I said at this every meeting in this campaign so far that I've spoken at. I take no pleasure in coming out in a pandemic. And I've been speaking on platforms for the Democratic Labour Party since 1970. And I take no pleasure in coming out in a pandemic to be part of an unnecessary, not without reason. I hear people saying this is the election without reason. No way. It was unnecessary, but it was called for a reason, even if that reason was to satisfy the whims and fancies of one particular person. And that becoming clearer and clearer every time I hear these briefs by that individual, who of course is still currently the Prime Minister of Barbados until that changes on the 19th of this month. But nevertheless, this country belongs to all of us. It don't belong to the Barbados Labour Party. It doesn't belong to Mayor Montley. This country belongs to all of us who are citizens in this country, whether they adopt this country or not, or whether we're born in it. And therefore, we have to sacrifice in some form or fashion so that we can get our message over as a political party some 66 years going. I need not dwell on the achievements of this Democratic Labour Party. They're humorous. They are humongous. They're large. The achievements and the contributions of the Democratic Labour Party are great. And I wish to say that for me, I've been following politics in this country now for over 60 years. And not only in Barbados, I've been attracted to world affairs. When we only had the BBC, which I listened to, read every newspaper in those days when the paper had cost 3 cents. The Advocate was 3 cents, now you're buying the paper for $3 on Sundays. So I've always followed world affairs. I became attracted to it. I can't say why I did, but some things attract you. And therefore, world affairs have always attracted me. And when the Democratic Labour Party came into office in 1961, it was a new day for this country. I know what Barbados was like before 1961. And in the Edinburgh cabinet, that lady sitting over there, her father, Neville Winfield Boxall, was one of the first ministers in the Democratic Labour Party's in the Edinburgh cabinet as Minister of Communications and Works. If you'd know the conditions of the road, I told the people the other night in Westbury Road, garden land. Roads may not be a big thing now because obviously it is expected of every government to fix the roads. That is what we pay taxes for, even though I see some of the holes as large as some of the wells about in the plantations. I feel that they have to look at the kind of material that being used to patch these roads. I think that's what I have to look at. But I say this, there were tremendous strides in this country under the Democratic Labour Party. It's fashionable now for people to wear patch-up pants and cut-out pants. People were wearing those things because they couldn't do better. So it's a style now. It wasn't a style then. You must have heard about people men used to wear a saddle patch in their backside. You know, men sit down all about the place, they sit down on steps, they sit down, and that is the first place of the pants that used to eat out. The spats on their feet. And those kind of caps, I don't remember to call those caps with broad and with a peak. And I'm saying that those were the conditions. Barbers used to cut hair up on a box, about down by the carenage and all that kind of thing, and in villages and so on. We have moved beyond that. Carpenters used to hang out down there by the fountain, where the Treasury building is. Of course, that is not going to be much of a Treasury building anymore because the government said they want to make it a building for tenants. So you will about to see, if that occur, you're going to see underwears and all kind of things all up on the lines, because I mean, in Big Broad Street, you're going to see that. There's no yard. Everybody can't buy a dryer. You go to Canada, you go to those countries and so on. People, you go from the washing machine to the dryer. Everybody in Barbados can't do that. But we have made tremendous progress in this country over the years. I have some concerns which I wish to share with you. I am concerned about a proposal mooted by the International Monetary Fund, and that is to interfere, using real local words, interfere with the pensions of the people of this country. I heard the Prime Minister in a news item this afternoon, a news brief, responding to some of those comments. But she take long to do it. And no. But you can't take her at her word. You cannot take her at her word. I know politicians are human beings. I worked here, Mr. Barr's research assistant. He didn't always get everything right. He never did. Nobody ever did. But he got a lot of things right. But I knew. I wasn't carried away by all those things that they were talking about. I wasn't carried away. We have a chat, and those persons will tell you in the chat, about 5 months, 6 months after, people were still getting a little, I say, man, don't worry. What goes around comes around. Not that I don't wish the best for my country. I wish the best for my country. I got 7 grandchildren. One in Manhattan and the others in Barbados. And they're got to pay back this money that these people are borrowing. Because I don't think a lot of us can be around to pay back all this kind of money. And I take this here very, very seriously. And you cannot take the Prime Minister at her word anymore. You call the election and 99% of your members didn't know. And she said that because she was speaking in a brief and she spoke about a matter, and then she said, but then again, the Attorney General didn't even know that I was going to call the election. Her own words. Her own words. And trying to portray the Democratic Labour Party as this broken up organization fighting with one another. Let me tell you something, man. Sometimes I hear people saying things about politicians, whether they're B or D. And I say myself, I haven't heard or read anywhere where a country being run by robots, or robots, I should say. I haven't heard anywhere. But if you go out there and make promises to a people and condemn the condemnation of the Democratic Labour Party, sometimes I feel horrified. I feel horrified. And I have to repeat, because I know from whence this country came. I know what Barbados was like before 1962. And I always make a reference to my late aunt. My late aunt, Lolita McBrady, who was a teacher for over 50 years, until she retired being an officer in the Ministry of Education, joined me and my brother in this political party. Because when the Democratic Labour Party came into office in 1961, her salary, if you can describe it as that, was $60 a month. It was $60 a month. But of course, I must tell you that things were very cheap in those days and so on. That is true. But my brother had to leave Commermere School in 3rd form because those fees were not able to continue to pay those fees. $24 a term. Lodge was $28. And I said, if you're the whole long, he lives in Canada over 50 years. We communicate almost every day. And I said, if you live long enough, if you stay into school long enough, you're probably able to get some of the free education that Mr. Barra and the Democratic Labour Party introduced in 1962. And education for a black man is important. Very, very important in your life, because what goes in there, nobody can take out unless they cut off your head. And interestingly enough, Sidney Poitier, who just passed, had referred to that. Left the Bahamas as a 15-year-old. To hear his story is remarkable. But one thing I admire him for, he stood up and he stood for a principle. He didn't care if it was white or snow or whatever. And that is why they got to refer him as the first black man to get an award, because you have to live by a principle. You have to, I don't care who you are, you have to live by a principle. It would cost you sometimes maybe a a little backstepping. But the point is you have to live by a principle. And I learned that very early in my working life. I had to tell off white managers more than once, not in an abusive way. I work in the hotel industry for about just over a year. Had to say what I had to say. Because I'll tell you this, I am one black person that do not suffer with an inferiority complex. And members of my family will tell you that growing up. And I am appreciative that where I didn't gain in certain areas in academic life, that my children come on and was able to achieve it. But it don't make you less than a man or a woman. You have to be born with some kind of integrity, some kind of purpose in life. And I tell you something, I spent a few years around Mr. Barrow, up there, in that other building. And you're talking about a person that humble. You're talking about a person that also can get acid, but don't bear malice. You're talking about a man who will tell you something now, harsh. And then go and bring a bottle of gin and tell you, come and drink one. That kind of man. But I tell you this, and I told a meeting in here, I told one or two people, I don't make it a conversation. These things only come up when you make a conversation. There are some things that Mr. Barr said to me. That I didn't care if I lived to 150 years. I don't care how long he died. I will not speak. No, I might not be the only person he told, but I will not repeat them. There's some things that will die with you. But when I look back, and I'm trying to look at the history from whence Barbados came, when I hear people condemning, when I see the structures, that say nothing forever but Jesus, that's quite true. But you look at what this administration is doing, trying to knock down every structure that the Democratic Labour Party put in place in this country. I am told that that cost $16 million, certainly not to build, but $16 million to lick down. Could you imagine that? That kind of money could be paid to people. Or a person, whoever. And you got nurses that working hard as hell. I saw a nurse in December when they went to the bank for my pension. I didn't know what was going on. By the time I get in the line, I hear two women talking. The woman literally cried to know there was no money there for her. And she stayed up and she looked at the counter, so, you know, at that time of the year, you know, this Christmas time means a lot to people. And they ain't got a cent and work hard. And you can tell me that you're paying out millions of dollars to people in this country. And those nurses had to go home. They have a home, you can't say they don't have a home, whether they own it or not. They had to go home without a cent in their pocket or pocketbook. It is criminal. Because as you get to a stage, I think somebody mentioned dictatorship down there just now. It's criminal when people get to a stage in their lives, give service, 30, 35 years, whatever, and because of how you feel that they shouldn't withdraw their services because of certain circumstances, even in December, a year that everybody, I don't get too fussy about Christmas anymore. But the point is, me ain't got nothing to do with other people. If the other people feel that way about it and got the children and the grandchildren and so on, enjoy it. I can do a little thing myself, but I don't go over the board anymore. But it is a season that people cherish. And when you deny them, it is dreadful. It is dreadful. You know what is worse? To show you what you got to get rid of this government. Give me the vote and watch me. Those were her words. You imagine government is supposed to give an account of revenue and expenditure. That is what you get in the estimates, yes. But also you have to show or should show, how you are going to close the gap between revenue and expenditure. That is the norm, but you ain't got to go to the Jesus College to understand that. That is what, but for 2 years in this country, you have not had a budget. And I'll tell you something too. Outside the estimates and expenditure, which is part of the structure in this country and always been, Mr. Barr introduced the first independence debate. Sorry, the first budget debate, not independence debate, the first budget debate in 1962. Errol Walton Barrow. First time. Of course, you always had the estimates debated and so on. And Alfie used to say that, you know, the budget, real budget. Yes, maybe in a sense, but you go about financial reports. You've been getting a little drips and drabs. I don't know. You can tell me that government can settle a matter, not in court, out of court, because it was taken out of court for those police officers. I'm not targeting them as police officers. I'm looking at the principal part of it. The rumor is $1.3 million. Are you telling the people, don't tell nobody? I put it in Bajan terms, don't tell nobody. In other words, it must not be disclosed. What the neckbones are hearing? Huh? Taxpayers' money. And you hush-hush with it? Taxpayers' money. Those are the things that rile me up. Those are the little things that a lot of people are not looking at. And you hear, I hear one woman when I had a debate with the COVID thing. May I fade away? Why do I don't really listen to may I fade away? But even if she gave permission for those care packages, you think it comes she mouth? You think it come out her pocketbook? You think it come out her bag? You think it come off her bank account? Some $86,000, I'm told. And that helped to prop up some of the merchants about the place. This country has been a one-sided affair for too long. And that is why, even though a lot of them gone to the great beyond, the business sector have never really sided with the Democratic Labour Party. Never did. They can get all the money and get to the Barbados Labour Party. They will turn around and write off taxes and write off this. But the small man or small woman in this country, that is why that issue with the nurses is a very serious one. It is inhumane. It is inhumane. It can mean $1 million or $2 million. It is inhumane. And people work hard. One day you want to crucify them for. Or 1 week. Well, it went on into weeks and days. And you dock their money. Not a saint. Those things can't be right. Those things can't be fair in this land in 2022 or even 21. Because it's still going on, because they didn't get paid yet, as far as I hear. So even stretching to 22. Those things are the things that we need to understand and come to grips with. So you can't have, I just hear people being critical about communist countries. I went to communist countries. I went to North Korea. I spent 12 years in North Korea, and that's the communist side of the Korean peninsula. I spent 2 days in Russia. I spent 3 days in Cuba. Because I was on that particular tour in 1988. I mean, it is true I was a guest, and therefore I can't complain about the treatment I have gotten. That is quite true. But I understand their system. So when I hear people talking about communism and this here and this here, what communism right in Barbados called, her behavior is communism. She practicing communist theories and practicalities. And you could, like you holding a donkey come back here, go along, and that's how you want to treat some of the people in this country. All of a sudden, you can't criticize, you can't be critical. They walk up and down this country. And along with some of the associates in certain government departments. Sometimes you feel you don't want to feel for something like that. But a lot of sabotaging of the Democratic Labour Party work took place in this country. And a lot of them confess. A lot of them confess after the election. You should hear the voice notes and things going, man, tell me don't do this, man. They tell me don't do that. They tell me don't do the next thing and all that. You know some of the same people that was part of the sabotaging. You don't know some of the guys sent home by me coming. Some of the guys sent home. That was part of restructuring. And now we might be talking about restructuring. Look at how people, pensions. I'm a pensioner. Before I retired, I was paying $495 a month for national insurance. I don't regret it, I must tell you that. But that was a contributory pension. You tell me anything should be shaved off my pension? Well, we're going to be part of a class action suit if that got to happen. These are the areas that we have to be concerned, and you have to put a clip to it. You have to put a stop to it. This country belongs to all of us. And we must not allow this kind of behavior. Jeffrey Cave, who is one of the directors of Cave Shepherd. I was a member of the Senate for 10 years. And I heard him got up and said, Madam President, I was saying that Mr. Sandyford was a stubborn man. I was saying Mr. Sandyford was a stubborn man, but he saved our dollar. Jeffrey Cave, director. He would never support the Democratic Labour Party. But he got up in front of me because, you know, it's an oval table, and obviously you don't sit down like I sit down in Parliament. Independents over there and so on, senators and the government senators over this side. He got up with a fairly tall man. So, Madam President, I was saying Mr. Sandyford is a stubborn man, but he saved our dollar. And when they had the demonstration against this government for the 8% cut, I remember him sitting down on one of those stools right by the park. In the picture, in the papers, sitting down from one of those stools that the superintendents is using the cane grounds and so on when they're watching the laborers cutting the cane and different things. Sitting down there by the park. But at least he made a confession. He made a confession. So we have to understand that this is not normal. I tell you, I've been in politics, I like it, lost a lot of sleep, I enjoyed it, but I'm not really enjoying this one. Because this is unnecessary. This is unnecessary. Not saying without a reason. Obviously it was called for a reason. There's a reason for everything. So, but we have to put on our gloves and come out here and fight. This country don't belong to Mayor Montley. It don't belong to the Barbados Labour Party. It don't belong to all of those people with all of the big businesses and all sort of thing that only get one child and two. Let me tell you something. If there's one white man in this country, he died now, that I had some respect for, is a man called John Simpson. And I'll tell you why. John Simpson was the owner of Simpson's Food Fair. He was, because he died now, the brother of Keith Simpson from Simpson Motors. And I'll tell you why. In about 1966-67, my aunt used to shop there. Because when she would go to Canada, she used to be fascinated by these big supermarkets and so on. And Simpson Food Fair, as it was called, was set up that kind of way for everything That's how they got the supermarkets in Canada and the States and all that sort of thing. And I heard Johnny Simpson stand up and saying to my aunt, and my aunt was one from the old school too. I am not afraid to say this, because a lot of us had family that way. Wants to see white people and brown-skinned people and things that used to get foolish, not me. I respect you for what you are, but I don't suffer with those inferiority complexes. And I heard Johnny Simpson telling my aunt, Miss Matt Brady, the people that looking like you, they should just keep this supermarket going, not the people who look like me. Because he says, look, if the people around St. Lawrence, and you know a lot of locals who live in those areas, be coming now for the tourists, so to speak. So when they come and they buy a pack of coffee or a pack of tea or some bread and them kind of small items, tin of milk, and you get, if they come 6 times a day, that is what keeping the supermarket going over. The people looking like me is come only once a month. And I heard John Simpson, J.B. Simpson, who just passed here last year, telling my aunt this. And my aunt come from that old school that used to look up to them kind of people. I won't tell you that in the early part of my life I didn't suffer that kind of inferiority complex too, because we used to feel that once people here they fall down the face that we used to worship them. And I might, in my early days, might have had that kind of complex. But from the time I started to work, and work among those people, I recognize what they really are. And when they get angry, they will tell you what black people can do and what black people can do. I saw that. Not curse me, because I curse it back. And I remember one experience. The Barbados Foundry that collapsed. Barbados Foundry used to make all of those rollers and so on for the sugar industry. And he died, not going to call his name. Bruce Stout was the general member of the Foundry Group, Central Foundry, Barbados Foundry. But D.M. Simpson there had an engineering thing part of that. Cotton factory, all of that was the Foundry Group. And he was the first man in office on the morning and the last man to leave at night. But nobody knows he's cooking the books all the time. And he ran away, left his wife in Highgate Gardens, and ran away with his secretary to Canada with all the people money. I know people work at the Foundry for years and you get a cent. I had a fellow named David from Upstation Hill. He died. Not an old guy, he wasn't really old. He died. He used to drive the little open truck or van it was and so on. He died, didn't get a cent. Went there from a boy. Ran away the secretary. But I say that to say this. He had a son. Son's still living. His son's still living in Barbados. He's part of a business. I'm going to call his name. There was a strike here in Barbados. There was a strike here in Barbados called the Provision Merchant Strike, where you had all of those porters on that big canvas. Everybody remember those big fat tarpaulins that used to cover the groceries and so on, that the people driving about in the truck and selling to and giving to the small shops and things, distributing to the small shops. Because they had a lot of small shops in Barbados. And those fellas had to strike for $5 more. $5 more. David Steele is who established the Provision Merchants Association. $5 more they had to strike for. And the son of Bruce Stout, I was working then in the commission department at Central Foundry. You know what he tell me? I was on vacation when that strike took place. When he come back, you know what he tell me? My know all the black people, they can't run the business. You know, if I appear prejudiced, if I appear anti-white, it's because of the behavior and the attitudes of those people towards us. I am one black man that don't suffer any inferiority complex to anybody, furthermore white people. I believe that my time is up. Well, friends, I'm only a stopgap tonight, but I always come by. I've been doing it for years because in case they need me, I will fill a gap or a spot. So I want to thank you very much. I hope that you've learned something from what I've said, and we are going to win this election. I can feel it. We are going to win this election. But the same token, I had seen where we would have lost the last one. And after a lot of years in this business, you tend to get these vibes, you tend to get these feelings. But you still can't drop your guard. You still can't drop your guard. So, good night, folks. Take care. Enjoy the balance of the night.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party to serve the people.
A huge thank you to Mr. Reggie Hunt for that address. At this time, we are ready for our next speaker. A man who was raised in the constituency of in the parish of St. Michael, who is ready to serve his community in return. His passion lies in the social and educational development of the youth, and as such, he is determined to focus on creating a Barbados where every young person has the opportunity to achieve their goals. Help me welcome Mr. Nicholas Allen.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party to serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people, serve the people, serve the people, serve the people.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to address this audience this evening, for I am always mindful of my purpose in politics, and that is to represent the constituency of St. Michael East. I am thankful to the Democratic Labour Party to be the flag bearer for this constituency once more. And I am confident that on January the 19th, this seat will return to the Democratic Labour Party. My vision for St. Michael East is to build a community that is strong while improving the lives of the constituents. And this evening, I want to tell you of the 5 pillars of how this will be done. Our first pillar is community development, for we will seek to develop a plan that includes all within the community. This community development would assist with small projects within each neighborhood, within the constituency, that we will be able to provide that support to those who need it the most. Our second pillar is entrepreneurship, for we will work with young individuals who are keen and focused on developing or starting their own businesses. We will provide the necessary guidance, resources, and materials to assist these individuals. Our third pillar of how we will seek to transform this community is through innovation. And we've heard it before on many Democratic Labour Party platforms that we would seek to implement Wi-Fi across the resource centers throughout the communities and the primary schools, for we recognize that there's not always a resource center in each neighborhood. But in my constituency, we have at least 4 primary schools. So we will seek to establish wireless connection in those areas so that our young men and women are not disadvantaged in the event that they don't have access to internet, that they can still be online and still keep up with their schooling. Our fourth pillar that we would seek to establish is a center of excellence for sports in St. Michael East, because I believe that we have the talent amongst our individuals that can move this constituency forward, and with sports as a viable alternative for employment. We have young, talented individuals who may not be academically inclined, but very good at football, very good at cricket, very good at volleyball. And in St. Michael East, we have many examples of them. The Hope brothers who played cricket for West Indies are just an example of such, and what can be possible through sports. Our fifth pillar would be the economic enfranchisement, and this encapsulates all of the other pillars that we would have listed before. Specifically for those in the area of Haggett Hall, those farmers, we will seek to establish a cooperative that will provide the marketing aspect for those farmers who may be unable to get their produce to market. We will seek to establish relationships with the business within our constituency. We have the Sky Mall and the Haggett Hall, One Haggett Hall Mall. For there are many businesses, many international franchise in that area. So we will seek to establish business and strategic relationships with these companies. Ladies and gentlemen, with those 5 pillars, I believe that we will be able to make St. Michael East a pillar of constituencies across Barbados. So I am asking you to join me, to vote for me on January the 19th as I seek to bring active and better representation to the people of St. Michael East. After serving almost 20 years plus in Parliament, my opponent is now seeking to implement natural gas. He promises natural gas. He promises the paving of roads, running water. All these things, there are billboards erected in our constituency now, promising persons these things. When last election, we were promised a reverse osmosis plant for the residents of the Bell. To date, we have not seen such, and their lives continue to be affected without access to running water and bathroom facilities. And in 2022, no person should have to go through that. And I say tonight that a Democratic Labour Party, as the candidate for St. Michael East, I will seek fervently to address those issues and concerns of the residents of the Bell and Lickridge Village areas. I ask you one more time to vote for Nicholas Allen, to come out in your numbers from 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening. I will work for you. Work with me, and I will work for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
We voting DLP. you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. We going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP. DLP for all of we. DLP, we voting DLP. DLP, we voting DLP.
Vote for Berla, vote for Berla, vote. We need a prime minister representing St. Lucie, and Berla will make it happen. Berla will make it happen. We need a true leader to help St. Lucie, and Berla will make it happen. Berla will make it happen. We need clean water and not a tanker. Berla will make it happen. Berla will make it happen. We need a gemstone, not a flintstone. Berla will make it happen. Berla will make it happen. Flintstone, Mr. Flintstone, your time is up now. Your time is up now. Your time is up right now. All we see is a big rock right at the top of Maycock. All we see is a big rock right at the top of Maycock. Right there so by the bus stop. Right there so by the bus stop. The man ain't turn up, but now he wants your vote. The man ain't turn up, but we gonna stinky boat. The man ain't turn up, but now he wants your vote. The man ain't show up, but we gonna rip he coat. Vote, vote for Berla, vote. There we go, vote, vote for Berla, vote. There is brown water in the pipe, oh what misery. There is brown water in the pipe from ministry to ministry, from one to the next. You know nothing you can show. So pack your bags, we don't want you no more. Go. There is brown water in the pipe, oh what misery. There is brown water in the pipe from ministry to ministry, from one to the next. We know nothing you can show. So pack your bags, we don't want you no more. Go. Vote, vote, vote for Berla, vote. 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 Vote, vote, vote for Berla, vote.
Biggity. The best pick is S-Wing. The best pick is S-Wing. The best pick is S-Wing. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wing. Make way for the people's champ, the only ones in Philip West one. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wing. St. Philip people know this is true. S-Wing always for you. Tell me who's the best pick? David S-Wing. In transport and water, agriculture.
brother Moth, bless up, bless up, bless up. Things are gonna change. Vote on Marie all the time. St. George South, the best person. Want y'all know that.
Come over for the Marie now. Show me what you got. Come over for the Marie now. Please don't give up. Come over for the Marie now. Show me what you got. Come over for the Marie now. Please don't give up.
Vote on Marie, she's the best for your constituency. Give her your votes, no regrets. You wanna take them back, and I guarantee you that that's a matter of fact. Vote on Marie, on Marie, on Marie. 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 On Marie, on Marie.
Come over for the Marie now. Show me what you got. Come over for the Marie now. Please don't give up. Come over for the Marie now. Show me what you got. Come over for the Marie now. Please don't give up.
Marie don't do no victimizing. I don't care who criticizing. I vote in fast like the lightning. I vote in fast like the lightning. Vote on Marie, on Marie, on Marie. 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 On Marie, on Marie.
Welcome back, and I am so excited to welcome our next speaker. With a love for education and with a background in pharmacy and marketing and communication, he has a passion for helping others to succeed and pledges to continue to serve Barbados as he always has in his past through representing his constituency of St. James Central. It is my pleasure to welcome the candidate for the constituency of St. James Central under the Democratic Labour Party, Mr. Paul Gibson.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must.
Good evening, comrades. Good evening, Barbados. Good evening, friends. This evening, we want to celebrate the Democratic Labour Party, the progress we're making, and the commitment we have to Barbadians to see them move from strength to strength. It is our intention in this election to right the wrong that has happened in terms of the way that this country is being run. We believe that a mistake was made and that people understand that it was really not meant to be that way. And we believe that persons will make a big change to this government going forward. As a matter of fact, we believe that the people of Barbados will now see that the Democratic Labour Party is the party for Barbados and for Barbadians. All of our candidates do one thing. We put a picture of a child in one corner, and we put a picture of an old lady in another corner. Because we realize that they're the two most vulnerable groups in this society. And it must be that anything we do, say, or any action that we engage in must represent these two demographics. We believe that Barbados has to take care of Barbadians and the residents of Barbados, and that the actions that any government engages in is to the benefit of Barbadians. To that point, we have had a situation where when we come from 33,000 feet and look down on Barbados, we were seeing some things happening to our people
that is of grave concern to us. The disregard for the voice of the people. It is always said that the voice of the people is the voice of God. And in a throne speech, we would have heard a commitment to hear the voice of the people. But no such thing has occurred. We would have seen that at the throne speech, a very back doorway was used to introduce same-sex relationships into Barbados in a way that was really inappropriate, as opposed to use the mechanisms that are available to us as Barbadians to be a part of what is happening. This is a concern to us. We also see that the Constitution as we currently have it was kind of hoodwinked by a process that disrespected the voice of the people. We have gone to a referendum. We did not go to referendum as was purported in the throne speech. And I'm saying to you, Barbadians, that this constant practice of selection of national heroes, of making arbitrary decisions singularly, is not democratic by any stretch of the imagination. I want to bring your attention to the fact that we have practices and processes in Barbados that protect Barbadians, that protect the lives of Barbadians, and put us in a position where the average individual is respected and their voice is heard and respected. We are now in a situation right here in this country where that is not the case. Shall we continue in this manner? Shall we continue to allow the voice of the people to be disregarded? I say a resounding no. I say to us all tonight that you have a vote, that you are important, that we together run Barbados and lead Barbados and need to be a part of where we are going. You see, willy-nilly decisions can affect generations negatively for many, many generations to come. Decisions made can have long-lasting effects on generations to come. And so, unlike what is happening with the Barbados Labour Party, the Democratic Labour Party, before we make any decision, we take the thought, we take the assessment, we look at the scenario and take it to its furthest logical end. Why do we do that? Because we believe that before you make a final decision, you really should determine the impact that it would have on generations to come. Whether it is from my constituents in St. James Central regarding how beaches are being given to visitors or persons that are coming here, forgetting the history that beaches are a place where friends are made, where fellowship happens, and where communities come together to celebrate life. And to give our beaches away without consideration for the communities that surround them, like Paints Bay and Fix Village and Prospect and Sandy Lane and Sunset Crest, is a concern to all Barbadians. That beach belongs to we. I want to express the concern that I heard from many of the residents in Sunset Crest and Sandy Lane at the closure or the intended closure of the police station, the library, and the courthouse right there in Whole Town. They were not consulted in Jamestown. They were not consulted in Sandy Lane. They were not consulted in Sunset Crest. But that is such an integral part of that community in terms of the historicity, in terms of the value, in terms of the conveniences associated with having such a structure in place. I'm saying to you that we must be listening to the voices of Barbadians. I'm saying to you that the people in Fitz Village and Prospect, as they traverse the beaches and so on, are finding it more and more difficult to get access to beaches. They have to go all the way around, sometimes to get to a beach. And we saw just a couple of weeks ago in the Christchurch area in the Gap that a hotel was opened by the Prime Minister of Barbados. And there's about a 450 yards to 500 yard beach that is represented right there in Christchurch. And that beach would have been a beach that people would have grown up with. They moved to New York or England or wherever. And when they come back, they would want to go back to that beach because it has such treasured memories. But the Prime Minister opened a hotel where the beach has been occluded from the locals in that area. So much so that Gabby and another gentleman had to go down there to protest with signs saying, listen, you cannot do this. You have to give access to these beaches to Barbadians and residents alike. Ladies and gentlemen, is this going to be the course that we're going to take? Is this what we're going to do to our Barbadiana? Give it away to the point where, to the highest bidder, where we no longer have access? It is a concern to all of us. I also want to bring attention to our healthcare system. And why I want to do so is because it is not just COVID that is causing deaths. It is not just COVID that is causing families to be mourning and to be suffering and feeling pain. It is sometimes the fact that patients wait 36 to 40 hours to come in front of a physician to see a doctor, but can go to a private facility and in 1 hour they're assessed. And I'm saying to us that we must do better. And don't blame COVID, because under the Democratic Labour Party, those hours were not 36 hours. It was much, much less. People would have been able to get in and get out and be seeing a physician face to face. But it takes now 36 to 48 hours. That is not good enough for Barbadians. And I'm going to tell you what the reason for it is, I believe, based on the assessments. It is that the capacity of the nursing staff is not enough because we don't have enough nurses. It is that the shift does not have enough doctors because the doctors are under pressure. And so, in planning and structuring a society, in planning and structuring a community, as I said earlier, we take it to its furthest logical end and ask the question, what do we need to do to make this better for all Barbadians? The answer to the question is that we provide tools. The answer for the question is that we run ahead and look back and see what needs to be achieved and execute so that we are giving service to our Barbadians. You see, Barbadians, I'll tell you this. When you have a pre-diabetic or a pre-hypertensive or some person that has a compromised thyroid position, the best stage to treat and to manage that patient is at the community level, where the person is picked up in the system, and before the dominoes start to fall on their lives in terms of amputations, in terms of asthma attacks, in terms of loss of feeling, in terms of loss of eyesight, in terms of damaged skin and sores and injury, is to give that person an opportunity to speak to a dietitian or to be tooled or to be instructed as to how best to come out of the lane that is causing this deleterious effect on their lives. You see, the ball has been dropped. It is not just COVID to be focused on, it is the NCDs, because that is the bugbear that is affecting Barbadians. And this is why the Democratic Labour Party has put a policy position which suggests that there will be a 10% placed on all sweeteners and all artificial flavored drinks so that we can mitigate, we can retard the onset of the non-communicable diseases. And why they're called non-communicable diseases is because they are actually preventable. And you can prevent these things from happening by putting the right systems and processes in place. I want to go on to the point regarding a situation that is happening in Barbados regarding procurement. Procurement is important. Procurement is about, especially in a COVID pandemic, is important to ensure that we're getting the best product at the best price. And sometimes we observe that the correct tendering process is not being engaged to ensure that the Barbados gets the best products at the best possible price, especially in this pandemic. We have all sorts of people, all sorts of willy-nilly people coming in and just because they have cash are able to attempt to offer a service to Barbadians. But sometimes they are compromising us. We want to make sure that what happened with that court case that is currently in the court of Miami, where a particular institution is suing another for falsely suggesting that they can get vaccines available. And we don't even know if they would have had snake juice in a bottle. We really don't know. But we were giving our trust to a system, to a process, and to persons that are outside of the structured, established Barbados Drug Service and asking them to do procurement, of which they know nothing. The whole story about there being a wild, wild west does not exist in the pharmaceutical industry. As a matter of fact, as I always say, the size font on the bottle is a regulated thing. It's a very controlled and very structured environment. And so to think that persons that make scientific solutions to pathologies and sicknesses would have a wild, wild west is indeed a fallacy. It is false. And so when we try to explain why somebody would buy a vaccine for $3 and want to sell you, the taxpayer, that for $24, $3, and you're selling it for $24? No. The profit on that would be in the range or approximately $12.5 million to one or two or even three persons. If I were to give you a check for $12.5 million, I'm sure you would know exactly what to do with it. But we have people working for all their lives, saving their money, and at the end of their tenure are being given bonds that up to the tune of 4 years, between 4 and 15 years. You're giving one person cash, but you're giving hard-working nurses and civil servants and private employees bonds. That makes sense? No, it doesn't make sense. Because they wanted to travel. They wanted to close off on their house. They wanted to buy a car. They wanted to pay off their debts. They wanted to go and celebrate the fact that they gave the best years of their lives to the government of Barbados. They gave the best years of their lives to the people of Barbados. And we go and give them bonds. But you're supposed to trust bonds, though. And what has happened by doing what they have done is compromise the trust that people use when bonds were used as an instrument of trust. That has been compromised. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are in a season where we're running the gauntlet. We're in a season where we have to make some very firm decisions. We have to make some very firm decisions about St. James Central and speak to the fact that active representation has not been happening in that constituency. We have to look at the fact that people are operating according to a political timetable where 4 to 5 days before the vote, 4 to 5 days before a vote, roads that should have been fixed almost 4 years ago are only today being scraped and laid over with tar? Is that representation? Is that what people put you in there for? I think Barbadians are smarter than this. I think the Barbadians in St. James Central are mindful of the trickery being shown and demonstrated. It is a disrespect to them when their kids wanted to play outside and they couldn't because the road was damaged. When all the front shocks and the rear shocks and the busted car tires for almost 4 years have been happening, you are now attempting to fix the roads. What about the other time? What about when they wanted to have the road fixed from the time of the last election? Why is it only being done now? You had the money, you had the capacity, you had the ability, but for a political and for political convenience, you seek to think that the people of Olive Lodge and Wrist Road and the persons in Sandy Lane are stupid? No, they're not. They're wise to your tricks. And I'm saying tonight, do not be mama guide. Do not be hoodwinked. Do not be tricked to think that we will allow this Barbados Labour Party to continue with the smoke and mirror effect that they have been doing for so many years and executing nothing. I think of Indar Ware, who has acres and acres of plantations to be planted up to ensure food security. And we are bringing food from Suriname. And we have empty government-owned plantations in the country, in St. John's, in Joseph, and in my constituency that are not being used. This is a serious, we need serious governance. Sweeping dust is maybe a good thing to put money in people's pockets, and we want people to get money in their pockets. But that is maintenance. What about large contracts? What about a large pharmaceutical company manufacturing and exporting to Ghana? What about the banking sector, moving from 52 international banks down to 10 since the Barbados Labour Party has been in place? What about the insurance industry that is worldwide, bringing in so much money? I'm calling on Barbadians to be mindful of the fact that we need to pay that $2.6 billion back. And it will not be done by sweeping ash alone. It will be done by finding opportunities to bring in revenue, pounds, euros, yen into Barbados. We have to look at things like health tourism as a way of establishing revenue earning streams as an augmentation to our current tourism model. We have to ensure that we are taking care of our children. For 2 years, we saw that our children were under tremendous pressure. For 2 years, we saw that they could not get on the internet. And because there was such a squeeze on their lives and their wallets that they could not even pay the light bill. So the kids can't even charge the computer, far less going to school. And you know what was very disappointing? We saw an announcement of the election, and a lady who I empathize with, who my heart was broken for, and I prayed for her many times. I could see her dancing at the announcement of the election. She should have gotten the educational system fixed. That is where the energy should have been. Don't dance now. You should have been dancing when the children were suffering. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, I want to call on you to be wise. Vote the Democratic Labour Party in a couple hours, January 19th. It's not too far away. It's in a couple minutes. We're going to have an election. And I want you to put your X next to the candidate for Paul Gibson and for our fantastic range of candidates. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come into your homes. I want to bless you, and I pray God bless you, and God bless this country, Barbados. God bless you. Good night.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. The serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people.
As Paul said, there's really only a few minutes until the election comes around. Most of us were not even expecting an election so soon, but the time has flown so quickly that we really do have to take advantage of every moment. Not just the candidates, but each and every person, to take advantage of every moment. Take advantage of every chance that you get to speak to your candidates. Take advantage of every single detail before you go and place your X next to a candidate's name. Last but not least, we have a candidate who is near and dear to my heart. A proud son of the community of Sherburne St. John, he has an educational background in psychology and extensive experience in human resource management. He spent many of his years dedicated to service in various organizations, both at the community and the national level, including serving as the president of the Young Democrats. This former senator is dedicated to ensuring that young people from across every parish in Barbados has the voice and has an opportunity to chart their own course. It is my esteemed pleasure to welcome my future MP, Mr. Andre Worrell, the candidate for St. John.
Vote for Andre Worrell. Vote for Andre Worrell. Oh. At the polls. At the polls. Vote for Andre Worrell. Vote for Andre Worrell. Oh. At the polls. Yeah. We repping the DLP. Andre representing we the people. At St. John, it's sweet time to take charge. Taking back the scene. We want what belong to we. So make sure you go out and vote for Andre Worrell. Vote for Andre Worrell. At the polls. At the polls. Vote for Andre Worrell. Vote for Andre Worrell.
Good night to the dear loving people of the Democratic Labour Party who are here with us here at George Street and who are also watching us all over Barbados on social media. We thank you for showing us that support, and we recognize that you are looking to the Democratic Labour Party tonight and in this election to show Barbadians the way forward, to be the party that will become the voice of the people of Barbados. Because over the last 3.5 years, you have been hurt, you have been suffering under a bloated cabinet, a bunch of consultants who have not been looking out for the interests of you, the people of Barbados. And you know what? The Democratic Labour Party with Verla de Pisa have shown that we have what it takes to take this country forward. And I am certain that on the 19th of January, that scores of Barbadians all across in all 30 constituencies will go to the polls and vote overwhelmingly for the Democratic Labour Party. Because we need change now more than ever. We need to look out for the interests of this country more than ever. We need to fight for one Barbados and for the people of Barbados now more than ever. We can no longer deal with dictatorship. We can no longer deal with a despot. We can no longer deal with a government that looks out only for the interests of big business, while small business and the average Barbadians suffer. Our manifesto, which was released last night, was a hot topic on the day even before it was released. They wanted it so badly because that party with an over-bloated cabinet is devoid of ideas. They needed substance for their political platform. And that is why they even tried to steal a draft of the manifesto. But for you, the people of Barbados, this is the true manifesto. This is the true promise and commitment to take Barbados forward.
coming from the Democratic Labour Party. They thought that we would not be ready for this election. That is why they call a snap election. They never thought that we would have a manifesto, but we have it. And tonight, and it is online, that all of you can go through it and see the vision that the Democratic Labour Party has for the people of Barbados. Always that vision to take the people of Barbados forward. We recognize the importance of underwriting Barbados' social progress with a diversified economy that ignites sustainable economic development for all Barbadians. That will always be the principle, the philosophy, and the bedrock of the Democratic Labour Party. And that is why on the 19th of January, you need to go to the polls and vote. I am telling you, on the 19th of January, on that night, we will be celebrating in St. John, because I love what I'm hearing in St. John. I am telling you that on the 19th of January, when the Democratic Labour Party supporters get up and go to the polls, we will also be celebrating in St. Lucie, because Verla de Pisa is doing tremendous work in St. Lucie. In St. James Central, with Paul Gibson, you will be supporting him as your next parliamentary representative. In St. Michael East, with Nicholas Allen, you will also be supporting him. In the city, with Kemar Stewart, you will be supporting him. In St. Michael West Central, with Curtis Cave, you will be supporting him. In St. Michael Northwest, with Ryan Allen, you will be supporting him. And all across in St. Philip, all three constituencies. In St. George South, in St. George North, and I cannot forget my neighbor and good comrade, Randall Rouse in St. Joseph. This is now his time. The Democratic Labour Party is making a rallying call to all of its members to come out in your numbers. Start the telephone canvassing and campaigning that to get Democratic Labour Party supporters to wake up from their slumber and recognize how important it is that we need to stand in the breach for the people of Barbados and fight for democracy, to be the voice representing the people of Barbados in the House of Assembly, to be the voice representing the people of Barbados which will stand up for the injustices which we have experienced over the last 3.5 years, to be a voice for the people of Barbados that will not only talk about the high cost of living, but be willing to use their mandate in Parliament to do something about the high cost of living in this country. If you look into our manifesto, you will see that it is addressed. Things that the business people have been asking for to help reduce the cost of living, we have decided to address it. It's on page 28 of our manifestos, cost of living corrective measures. You imagine a government that had all 30 seats and found it difficult to utilize their parliamentary privilege to do things to address the burning concerns for the people of Barbados. Let us look at cost of living and the pledges that the Democratic Labour Party made. Many of us felt hardship in 2018 when in their first budget they introduced the sewage tax on water bills. Something that made life hard for a lot of pensioners. The water bill was the one bill that you could squeeze out that $33 and go to pay and for pensioners. But after you put the sewage and the garbage tax on it, you saw a doubling of that bill, moving from $33 to $77 or $80-something. But tonight, relief is on the horizon for the people of Barbados if they go to the polls and vote with common sense and conviction and vote for the Democratic Labour Party. We have made a pledge to reduce that sewage tax by 50%. That is how you bring an ease to the people of Barbados. That is how you reduce the cost of living. That is how you make it easier for the pensioners who they didn't even increase their pension to still have money that they can pay towards the food that they need for the household and still give the grandchildren things to take to school and make sure that they have their supplies. We are committed to doing that. We don't just talk the talk. We don't just give you hot ear. We are committed and we stand by our word. And it is not only that, but you have a government that claims to look out for the interests of the big business in Barbados. And you had a number of persons complaining about the duties because of the increased shipping costs. They could have done something about that. It does not have to be a permanent measure. It could be a temporary relief at this time because we know that COVID has disrupted shipping supplies all across the world. And we know that the shippers have increased the cost of the containers and the shipping costs. We cannot control these things, but deal with the things that you can control. And a government that had a bloated cabinet, you want to tell me that one of those Thursday afternoons that they could not have sat down and decided, look, people, we need to find a way to address this escalating cost of living in Barbados, especially with food prices and commodity prices. Right now, the issue is the shipping costs, and we need to address that. So we cannot tell the shippers what to charge, but what we can control the things that we can. What we can do is at least remove the freight cost from the calculation of duties. And that would offer significant relief to a number of merchants in Barbados. Immediately, you will see a reduction in the price of a tin of tuna. Immediately, you will see a reduction in the price for corned beef and all of the items which we import. Immediately, you will see a reduction in price for building supplies like the concrete boards which a lot of people are using to repair their homes. Immediately you will see a reduction. These are things that a caring government would do, but you need to ask the Mayor Mottley administration who they really care for. And it is not you and I, the people of Barbados. They care for their friends and they care for their families, but they don't care for us. And that is why you need to support the Democratic Labour Party, because we are intending to make life easier for the people of Barbados. No more are we dealing with two Barbadoses, one Barbados, one people. What is good for the goose must also be good for the gander. Everyone in Barbados must benefit the same. That is what we are bringing to the people of Barbados. There are a number of measures in this manifesto. Last night at the meeting, I spoke about agriculture. This administration cared nothing about agriculture. We saw it in the way how they dealt with the feed subsidy for Pinnacle. They offered a $2 million subsidy to Pinnacle on 2 occasions, and it did nothing to maintain or reduce the price of the feed. The price of the feed still went up. And as a result of that, the farmers had no choice but to increase the price of poultry, eggs, and all the things that we consume. What they could have done if they really cared about the farmers is that they would have offered a 30% or 40% rebate to the farmers on feed prices. That would have done 2 things. 1, it would have allow the farmers to maintain their output price for their produce. And 2, it would have given the farmers a bit of cash flow that they could have expand on their production. These are things that will come from the Democratic Labour Party, because you know what? Farmers are people that we care about. Small business is something that we care about. But their focus was on the big business, Pinnacle Feed, giving them a subsidy, and they still turned around and increased the price. We will do things differently. We need to do agriculture in Barbados so that the farmers will benefit. You have a ministry of, all know Farmers in Barbados are crying out for high water bills, and no one in the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry of Water Resources is doing anything to assist them. You cannot have agricultural production without easy access to water. So you need, the same way that you can give $300 million to tourism, you need to put that same amount of investment in agriculture. It is the way forward for this country at this time. A country that cannot feed itself is like a dog without a bone. And we cannot be in that situation where we are dependent on others for our food. Our food import bill is over $800 million, and the Democratic Labour Party is making a commitment to reduce that by putting the CLECO lands back into production and doing it in such a way that we put it into the hands of vibrant farmers and farmers cooperative who are interested in farming. And we are not just going to give them the land, but we are going to give them the inputs to make sure that their production is productive. We are also going to integrate renewable energy with farming, because we believe if we utilize renewable energy, we will be able to increase our production and also grow things in greenhouses, the items which we would normally import, like broccoli. Those are things that can be grown here in greenhouses with climate control utilizing renewable energy. Those are the things that we need to focus on, the high-end commodities, things that our farmers would earn a high price. More melons, pawpaws, all of those things, even strawberries and grapes, those things that we pay a high sum of money for, that we should be able to grow here and reduce our food import bill. The Sea Island cotton, we need to start developing secondary and tertiary industries. For Sea Island cotton is an industry that we need to put some money behind. Right now, you can make $11 by selling the raw cotton. If we establish a processing plant here, a ginnery, where we process the cotton, you can move that $11 per pound to $24 a pound. And we could utilize that cotton in our creative industries. You could utilize that cotton for the fashion industry. You can utilize that cotton in the hotel sector. These are the things which we need to do to show Barbadians a new future and a new direction. Sports as an industry, a commitment which the Democratic Labour Party is making to transform sports as an industry in Barbados. We can't call our athletes professional when they have to go to work on a construction site during the day and then come home to train in the evening. We need to develop professional sporting bodies here in Barbados. We did it with cricket. We can do it with all of the other sporting disciplines, where you actually pay those athletes a salary so that their job is sport. They get up in the morning at 4 and go to training. That is their job. At 11 o'clock, they go in the gym to train. That is their job. In the evening, they go off to play their games. That is their job. If you develop sports as an industry, there are a number of other jobs that come around that. You would need physiotherapists, you would need sports psychologists, you would need managers and coaches, all of those things. You would need promoters as well. Obviously, you're developing a sporting industry, so you will have to have games. You will need to have games. So when you have the games in the community, you provide recreational activity for the persons in the community. They will come, vendors will set up, they will buy natural juices because we link in agriculture to that. They will buy the traditional Barbadian meals that you will see at these things. So you're creating a business environment and a hub and an opportunity for vendors and persons to promote and develop their business. I know that some of you will say that you can't afford this, but you know what? This is the thing with the Democratic Labour Party. If you can give $300 million to tourism, why can't you give a few $1,000,000 to young people in Barbados so that they can grow and develop by supporting sport, that they can see it as a new industry and an opportunity for employment? If you can write off hundreds of millions of dollars in VAT, which the consumers already paid into businesses and they refuse to pay into the government, you should be able to support a vibrant sporting industry in Barbados. We have to start putting the money where it is needed. We have to spend it on the people of Barbados and not just deposit it into the pockets of a few directors and shareholders, and not just to export that money overseas to China like you did when you imported those 400 houses. That is a way of stimulating employment in Barbados and getting the economy up and running again. I am telling you tonight, you have a lot to take with you at the polls. What I want for you to do, I have been hearing the Prime Minister saying that this could be her last term. I want you to grant her that wish, but even do better. Even do better. On the 19th of January, vote her out of office and vote in the Democratic Labour Party. Send her on pre-retirement leave and pay her gratuity in bonds. Because knowing Mayor Motley, I am certain that she will not accept bonds with no interest for her gratuity, but she would want you, the civil servants of Barbados, to do the same. But you need to give her a gift on the 19th of January. She's saying that she wants this to be her last term. Give her pre-retirement leave on the 19th of January by voting for the Democratic Labour Party at the polls. And her gratuity, she can take it in bonds with 0% interest rate. That is the gift that you should give to Mayor Motley. Tonight, your focus is to go and call every single family member, every single neighbor, every single friend, and encourage them to go to the polls on the 19th of January. And from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., vote for the Democratic Labour Party. Support Borla de Pisa in St. Lucie. Support Alwyn Babb in St. Peter. Support Odwin Skeet in St. Andrew. Support Charles Worrell in St. James North. And Ronnie Yearwood in St. James South. Support Dr. Hines in St. Thomas. Support all of the 11 candidates in St. Michael and the 2 in St. George. And support Andrea Worrell in St. John. Don't forget the 5 DLP candidates in Christchurch and the 3 in St. Philip, because we want to see a Democratic Labour Party government in office on the 19th of January, looking out for the people of Barbados. One Barbados, one people. Thank you and have a good night.
One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we going with DLP. One Barbados for you and me, we going with DLP. DLP for all of we got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, unite is a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party to serve the people, serve the people.
With that, we have come to the end of our program. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone that was involved, from our speakers to our streaming team to general members of the party who have really contributed to tonight coming off. It is a few days away from elections, and we are going forward strong as a party. We don't want to get discouraged by other people consistently trying to convince you that you're not strong enough. We know that we are strong, we know that we are ready, and we don't have to convince them. Our supporters know as well, and we are ready. With that, I would like to wish everyone a great night. I want you to stay safe and remember to exercise your right to vote because this is your opportunity to have your voice be heard. I am Terrian Reed and I would like to wish you a good night. God bless.
We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you. DLP, we voting DLP, DLP, we voting DLP. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of we. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of me. We got the plan to save this nation. Together we stand with the Democratic Labour Party. One Barbados, united's a must. For sure you can trust the Democratic Labour Party. To serve the people, serve the people, serve the people, work for the people. Serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. We going with DLP, one Barbados for you and me. We going with DLP, DLP for all of